All right, well, let's move along. So right now I am working on getting a piece for the bottom of the bookcase, and it's a little wider than the bookcase itself. It helps for it to stand up nice and straight and not be tippy-toppy. And I kind of wanted it to look kind of like a substantial base, which we will also work on here in a little bit. But right now I'm just putting the first, little base plate on the bottom. And I'm using the exact same glue, and I'm getting it all over the place. You can see those supports that I put in under all the shelves. And I eyeballed that. Probably should have measured it, but I didn't. Because that's what I do. Okay. So now I'm just going to tape it on there because I'm going to continue working, but I didn't want to, mess up what I just did. And that's kind of going to be the top. I just kind of, made two pieces and started guesstimating. Okay. And then I picked out this 1/4 inch skinny trim. It's real thin, 1/16, I believe. And I'm going to build a face frame for the front of the cabinet and have it wrap around the sides. What this is good for is this makes your cabinet, I keep saying cabinet, oh my goodness, your bookcase. It makes your bookcase look more substantial, and it also hides the supports underneath the shelves somewhat. It just makes it the sides look a little bit more beefy and more solid, and just finishes it off, just like trim, baseboards and whatnot around your walls. It just finishes it off. I love trim. I love trim. I love trim. So I don't just do it on the fronts, but I'm going to be wrapping that trim around the side too, just to add some extra layers and some interest. Bookcases are just kind of, square boxes is really all they are. So if you want it to look interesting, if you want it to look antique, whatever, trim is the way to do it. And like I said in the first video in the beginning, when I was talking about the supplies, I didn't buy trim like ornate trim. I just bought the real cheap, skinny, tiny stuff and figured I would just keep building until it turned out the way I wanted it, which is how they used to make trim back in the day. They would just stack and layer squares and skinny, thin pieces and little half rounds and 1/4 rounds on top of each other until they got the desired shape that they wanted for their trim. So this is what I'm doing, just gluing these on, and probably should have cut this a little shorter. I see that this section is kind of long, and all I'm doing is gluing little strips of wood onto the side of the bookcase. Yay, last piece. Finally. Because then we get to move on to the top. We're going to put the top on. So that's what I'm going to be doing next, after I show you the face frame, is I'm going to be grabbing the top that's going to go on the top. Imagine that. And this little secondary piece that's layered on top is to help build up what's coming next. I wanted it smaller because I wasn't sure which trim I wanted to put around the edge. I just knew I needed to fill in the empty space so that it would support whatever it was I wanted to keep building up with. So I'm just gluing this little support piece to the center-ish of that top plate that will go on top of the bookcase. And again, I'm just eyeballing it because that's what I do. And I think I grabbed some clamps so that it stays together here in just a second. I'm just checking fit. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do that upside down or right side up or, anyway, there I clamped it. All right, so now we are going to be building the toe kick support that goes at the base of the bookcase. So a toe kick. If you don't know what that is, a toe kick is like underneath your kitchen cabinets. You know how the cabinets will end and then they will kind of there's like a place for your toes to fit underneath the cabinet until it hits the cabinet, the base of the cabinet. Well, that base of the cabinet is called a toe kick because it leaves room for your toes so that you can belly up to the counter and work, right? So that's just kind of what a toe kick is. It's just the base of a cabinet or bookcase or whatever. So that's what I'm building. I didn't want feet. I don't know why. I just didn't want feet. I wanted it to look more substantial than just little feet. So I'm going to build this toe kick base. And I'm just kind of taping one of the long pieces to, and I'm retaping and taping and taping, just to kind of hold it steady so that I could get all 4 pieces and make my box, and then I could square it up. But it's hard to hold, 4 pieces at once. So if you if you tape one down, this glue does dry fairly quickly, or it holds a tack pretty quickly. And so you can hold it for a few seconds and then let go. And as long as you're careful, it's not gonna go anywhere. So that's my little handy dandy tip of the day is, tape and clamps and sandpaper, because I said sandpaper is your friend, right? And here is the little last piece. I'm just messily gluing that on. And there is my little rectangle. And now it needs a support in the middle to hold everything square. And I kind of put that in the middle, and you're going to see me taping that together until it dries. I'm going to set that aside so that it can get dry. Here I am deciding on what kind of trim I want around the top of that 2-layer top, and I'm looking at this one, and then this is what I decide on is the 1/4 inch square trim, like a little cube trim, and it's going to go all the way around the top edge of the top piece, and this will help continue building up. And this stuff was kind of hard to cut through. But my husband found me a small table saw, like a little one. It has an 8-inch blade, which reminds me I need to go get a blade for it. And because he found it at the pawn shop, so the blade's trash, So we'll see how that works. If I have all my fingers by Monday, we'll see. So I'm gluing this around the edge because I will be putting another layer on top of this to keep building up. I was not sure of my design. All I knew is that I kept putting the top on the bookcase, and I was like, nope, it just looks too bottom heavy. It needed to be a nice, substantial, like a fireplace mantle almost. Does that make sense? Like a old fireplace mantle, just a substantial thing. So I figured I'll just keep building up until I'm happy, until it looks substantial enough to be at the top of an old bookcase. New bookcases or modern bookcases don't have a whole lot of bases or tops. They're just kind of very minimal, and I love them very, very much. But this was not the look I was going for. I was going for, 150-year-old bookcase. So there I am. I was gluing, and this is now dry. And so I am going to finish the base, and it needs, it's going to need, and I know I'm like measuring against the top, but it's okay. It's okay. I was trying to find an extra piece of wood. Well, I ran out of wood that was wide enough to fit on that. So I grabbed some super heavy chipboard. As you can see, it's used. And I just held the toe kick base on there and drew around the edge so that I could cut out this chipboard, and that it would make a topper for that. What's good about adding a little topper to that toe kick is it keeps everything square, and it keeps it all stable. And so that's what I'm going to be gluing to the toe kick base. And this again just keeps building up the bottom as well, because the bottom already has a plate, the bottom plate on it, that bottom piece. But we're just gonna, roll with it. We're gonna keep going. So this is what I'm doing, is just basically gluing that piece of chipboard onto the toe kick base. And just gonna put that on there, and gonna grab some clamps and make sure everything's nice and square, and let that dry. And now what I'm doing is I'm just painting glue underneath to seal the seams. This toe kick base needs to be pretty solid, so I'm just reinforcing that glue. All right, well, that is it for this part 2. We should be able to finish in part 3. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you guys soon.